Hello! Hello, it's me. Here we are. It's finally happened. Months, years of watching the crappy mainstream BBC, Channel 4, Sky News sort of political news every single bloody night and day to see if something will finally happen. And I still can't quite believe it actually got an election. So for me, that's better than a people's vote. You know, we've had a people's vote. That's the entire point, isn't it? Which hasn't been implemented. That's the whole sudden reason this is all happening. Anyway, here we are. We've got an election. What's today? Today's Halloween. It's Halloween tonight. I've been to the door at least 4 or 5 times now, giving out the sweets. I love that, by the way. My mum and sister decided to get some sweets to give to the kids and things who are coming. Guess the sort of time they're going to be here, and one of them had to go to bed because she wasn't well, and the other one wanted a shower, so I was left. I was left to give the sweets out, which I don't want to do. I'm a bit of a grump as far as that's concerned. I don't want to give out sweets. It's not giving out sweets. I just don't want to have to get up and go to the door, you know, a couple of thousand times in the night. I'm trying to relax in the evening, get me tea, and you know. Anyway, that ran over. Here we are. So I think it's the 12th of December from what I've heard. I haven't really seen the news today or yesterday because I was actually at Bangor Uni yesterday, finally getting my PhD kicked off, which was great. But the hills, the hills killed. I don't know if you've been to Bangor. The hills nearly bloody killed me, because the university is, when you get into the train station, the university is up a great big bloody hill basically. You have to walk up, or there's another way round the back, which is you go down a hill and up a hill slightly, and then you've got a new building called Pontio, which is about what seems like a couple of hundred flights of stairs, if the lift ain't working. So either way, you can't avoid it. And at the minute, I can barely do the flat. Everything here is flat with a bridge, but there's a bridge between me and the town centre here. I can barely do that, to be honest, at the minute. But it's just until me irregular heartbeat's fixed. When that's fixed, I'll be fine. But so it was nice to be there, but nearly did me in. Couldn't get a taxi back down the hill and to other places because apparently midday in Bangor there's no taxis apparently. So that was all interesting. So anyway, so today I've been just trying to recoup and rest really. So yeah, I haven't had much time to watch the news. Now I know there's an election on, slightly avoided it, you know. I know it's happening now, so that's all I wanted to know. It's going to be I'm happy, but I know it's going to be a bloody hard sell here in North Wales. I know it's going to be a bloody hard sell in lots of places in the northwest, northeast, the north and Midlands. The Midlands is going to be really important, really important. You know, where there are places like here where people who've been left behind for years, decades, often voted to leave and have felt that their MPs and the MPs generally in Parliament in general have been shafting them for the past 3 years or more. So it's going to be hard, you know. But already got a few meetings planned to try and get the message out. Because I mean, look, you'll know if you've seen previous videos. I'm a Labour community councillor here. I voted to leave. I'm cross we haven't left yet. Just as frustrating and cross as anyone that voted to leave, like a lot of my residents did, and a lot of the people in town that I meet and speak to every week. So that's one issue. That's a Brexit issue, but that's a bit. But the whole point, the whole reason I got involved at all in joining a party and running for the I ran for the county council actually, and then community council, and all of that, is because I've got a dog in the race. Me and my family and the people that surround me in this area have been just destroyed by 4 decades of rampant, unchecked capitalism, neoliberalism, whether it's been from one Tory government after another, whether it was during the new Labour phase, which was sort of, many would argue, and I'd argue, was sort of Thatcherite light, perhaps, maybe in some cases not even light, PFIs and all that sort of stuff, and the privatisation and all of that, which of course I'm dead against, which is why I joined when I thought there was a new sort of party being, or not even new actually, sort of like our old traditional, what Labour's supposed to be about, was coming back. And obviously in the 2017 election, with a Labour manifesto then, those were typical sort of traditional 1960s, 1970s pledges, manifesto promises that are the ones that are sort of things that helped working class people after the war. So that's why I'm involved, really. Is not really for party allegiances or whatever. It's just that, I was on the dole at the time. I was volunteering for everything, CAB, all this sort of stuff, meeting tons and tons of people on the dole, on disability benefits, even in much worse situations than me and my family. We were having it tough, and people are just on their uppers basically. And I just thought, this can't go on. Someone's got to try and do something. As I'm a person who believes in put up or shut up, I thought I'd give it a go myself, and here I am. So for me, that's what I'm going to concentrate on. That's what I'm going to be talking to people about, or try to, is that yes, okay, you and me are angry about what's happened with Brexit. Obviously that's a factor in the election. Obviously that's what Boris Johnson's going to try and make it all about. But at the end of the day, if you're living in a place like this, where jobs are basically short hours, 0 hours, poverty pay in work, or the dole, or sickness benefit, where work isn't paying, just doesn't pay, basically, and there isn't much. You've got 200 people applying for the same part-time office job, which I'm maybe the same way you are, maybe worse. Your NHS ain't working because it's not really working for anyone. I don't think it's not working for the staff employed at the NHS, the doctors and nurses. I mean, I don't know about you at your local hospital, but how many agency staff does your hospital rely on? Because here it's a lot, and agency staff usually cost more than NHS staff, and it's agency staff at the weekend usually, agency staff after hours usually. We were waiting for the shifts to swap over. I remember when my heart sort of stuff started. When was that? About 2 years ago, and I kept being sent up to the rapid assessment unit at my hospital by my doctors. I think I went 2 or 3 times. I think on the second time it was a Tuesday tea time, just before Tuesday tea time, and I had to wait ages because there was a big gap while the shifts were changing over, but also it was changing over from the actual hospital staff, nurses and doctors, to agency staff, who were fine, but I was sitting there thinking, why agencies? Why haven't you employed enough actual permanent staff? because I know for a fact you're going to be paying 2 or 3 times more than the usual rate for staff directly employed by NHS. For the agency staff, it just didn't make any sense to me at all. I think this is one of the problems, isn't it? Is you're hearing about the talk from the Tories and that was it Nick Hancock talking about all the money they're pouring into the NHS and stuff. Well, of course that's after it's been starved of money for the best part of a decade, and was probably starved of money before that. I'm not being partisan here. Look at New Labour with PFIs. That was a disaster because now trusts having to pay back or try and pay back the loans on PFIs or pay back the money, and they can't afford to. It's leaving them in financial hardship, or they just can't do it. So, but anyway, as I keep telling people on the street, if you're angry with Labour, don't be. If you're angry with Jeremy Corbyn, don't be, because for the past decade, it ain't Labour or Jeremy Corbyn that's been running this country. It's been the Tories. It's been David Cameron with the Lib Dems. Then it's been Mrs May, and now it's Boris Johnson. So you want to blame someone for what's been going on, for the fact that your kids can't get on the housing list, the fact that there's no social housing to go to, and what's there is substandard usually. You have to wait for 2 years to even get on, even be offered anything in most places. They're not building social housing, they're building affordable housing, which is no good to most people, who are in our situation. That there's no jobs where you are, that any sort of adult would need to live on when working, that your employment rights are the bare minimum basic, that there's no legal aid. That's all down to the Tories. I was there. I was there in 2013 when legal aid was literally destroyed without any fanfare, any reporting. I couldn't find anything anywhere on the news or any of the main news channels about the fact that legal aid had just been completely wiped away in 2013. And I know that because that's what I wrote my dissertation on while I was finishing law school at the time. Nobody else seemed to know about it. Some of the tutors did, but like I say, it was nowhere in the media. And of course, the whole point of that was they didn't want people like you or me using legal aid to do things like judicial reviews on the changing benefit system the welfare reforms that Ian Duncan Smith and Esther McVeigh, those lovely, kind, warm-hearted Tory bastards, pushed through. All the stuff that's happened, by the way, on universal credit, people being evicted hand over fist because of the changes of the way that the housing benefit was paid, people defaulting on their rent, people getting sanctioned constantly because they don't know they've got appointments they've missed, and all this sort of stuff. Totally changed the system. All of this was predicted in the impact assessments that I forget what his name was. I think he was a sociology professor from, I think it was Sheffield University. Don't quote me on it, something like that. Back in 2011, who was sort of consulted as part of this. When you're going to change things, what used to happen is you'd have, say, government department wanted to change policy that would have a social impact, likely have a social impact. So you'd have impact assessments done on sort of the economic differences or the social differences, and obviously with focusing on the damage they do to the poorest in society if the changes were made. And in 2011, when Ian Duncan Smith sort of put forward his universal credit sanctions regime, basically, just after they won in 2010, he was told in no uncertain terms from the data that they'd sort of gathered this professor and his team, that the consequences would be more people homeless on the streets, more people in food poverty, more people in financial hardship. More people using payday lenders and all this sort of stuff. But of course, it was just ignored. They just ignored it and carried on. So none of this was a surprise or a shock. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, I understand if you're like me, you're cross with Labour, you're bloody furious with Labour. So say you hate Jeremy Corbyn, right? I'd say to you, because I meet people every day who hate, Jeremy Corbyn's. They say to me, Jeremy Corbyn's an IRA sympathiser. He's a friend of Hamas. He's a friend of terrorists. What else do I mean? Just all the stuff, and it's all the stuff. If you think about it, it's all the stuff you've seen repeated for at least 2015-16, when he first sort of popped up as the leadership contender and the leader of Labour, from the right-wing press, the Sun, the Mail, the Telegraph. Oh Christ! Even the Guardian, which was always considered as quite neutral, it's not really. But yeah, Sun, Mail, Telegraph, the Times. If you don't know, they're all owned. They're all owned by extremely rich billionaire Tory donors, people who directly donate to the Tory party, and they happen to own these papers. So of course, what you're going to see is rabid anti-Labour Corbyn smearing. Of course, that's what you're going to see, because they don't want Labour in charge. For me, forget Corbyn for a minute. They don't want Labour in government, because Labour, under Corbyn, with socialist manifestos like bringing things back into public ownership, so they're not being sort of financially bleeding raped by the friends of Boris Johnson and David Cameron and all the big businesses and that, which have effed us up all these years, because people like us who aren't rich need the things to work, but rich people don't care because they don't need those things to work, because they can pay for their own private healthcare and they can pay for this and that whenever they want because they're rich. So, I mean, I see it when I go to my local Morrison's. I'll see lots of locals going in. You got the newsstand right at the front of the shop. They'll go in. They'll peer at the and I'll do it. They'll peer at the papers, the front pages, and then that's about it. Don't really sort of look any further, because some people will buy, some people won't. And all you're seeing is the headlines, and the papers know this. But you've got to keep in mind, the vast majority of the media, the newsprint media in this country, and I'm afraid to say the BBC, ITV News, which is owned by ITN, Channel 4 News again, which is ITN, Sky News, which of course is privately owned, sort of Murdoch owned, again, don't want a socialist government making policies for people like you aimed at making yours and my lives better and easier, and which means that the gravy train for them stops. They've had a 40-year gravy train, thanks to Thatcher, thanks to Major, thanks to Blair when it was New Labour, different thing, not what this is, not what Labour is now. The whole point of Labour now is to try and make it the opposite of what New Labour was, make Labour like it was, which is aimed at helping people like you and me, not the rich. Under Cameron, under May, and now under Johnson. And Farage, Brexit Party, okay, Brexit Party, I want Brexit too, but Farage is a Thatcherite. Farage is cut from the same cloth as Johnson. They want to leave the EU for different reasons to me. They want to leave the EU so that they can hopefully win an election, leave the EU, which would mean that they set the agenda when it comes to legislation, which means cutting out all the safety nets. They call it red tape. What you and me would call it is the safety net of the welfare state. and other institutions, NHS, that we rely on, and selling it off. That's what they want to do. I want to leave, and you probably want to leave because you voted to leave, and that's that's basic democracy. But likely, you and I don't want to leave, so that we can watch rich people dismantle the NHS and the welfare system and the benefit system, and so on. Because everything, if you paid attention, everything's been that can be privatised has been privatised, including welfare, including unemployment. That was privatised. Yes, the privatisation started under New Labour, actually, where they farmed a lot of the stuff that job centres used to do off to private resourcing companies who were paid a fortune, millions and millions, to do the job that they were doing in-house. The job centre, the DSS it was, and that's just continued with this lot. But of course, we want to stop that. Labour already said, Jeremy Corbyn, we're going to stop universal credit, which is fantastic. I want to hear they're going to stop sanctions, because sanctions are the biggest problem, and that's been the hammer from the Tories to people on in work and out of work benefits, because you can be in half and half. The amount of disabled people who have just had their PIP or SA just completely stopped, no rhyme, no reason. It's just game playing, just to try and put them off even thinking about trying to reapply again, because it's stressful to do. They make it as stressful as possible. If you're ill, the last thing you want is more stress, And these aren't sort of sums of money that people who are already doing well helps them, live a bit nicer life. Something. This is stuff people who have nothing, on the whole, have nothing, are completely reliant on. All this stuff about all these benefit strategies, again from the right-wing media, benefit strategies. Do you think that the editors of the Times and the Sun and the Mail know a effing thing in reality about what it's like to live in a poor area of the country where there's no jobs and there aren't any opportunities, and it's the dole or the army, basically? They haven't got a clue now, because they've all come from bloody Oxbridge and the South East and London, and they've all had sort of rich mummies and daddies and that. They haven't got a sodding clue. Don't listen to what they tell you. You don't know what your life's like. You don't know what my life's like. They know nothing. They haven't got, pampered little bastards, pardon my French, pampered little rich, Eton, Winchester, because most of them come from the same place. You'd be amazed the amount of people that work at the BBC, who are the news editors and Sky News, ITN, ITV, Channel 4, The Sun, have all come from literally the same private schools. I mean, Eton, for example, where Johnson comes from, and Rory Stewart, and loads of Tories, Cameron and Osborne. When little boys are sent to Eton by their rich mummies and daddies, they're literally told from the first day that they are special, i.e. better than you or me. They're a special breed. They're so special that it is their duty to rule over you and me. What they think and what they say supersedes anything we think or say, because they're important. They're a different sort of species to us. Why? Because their mummies and daddies had the money to send them there. I mean, this is still goes 20 years, 2 decades into the 21st century, and we're still having to deal with this. We're having our country pulled apart for the vast majority, so that people like Johnson and his rich mates can make vast amounts of money without anybody sort of taking note, never appearing in the media. 'Cause you'll never see it appear in the media, because of course they're in it with them. They're the same people. They're all in the same club. They're covering for them. Often the media don't lie to you, unless it's about Corbyn and Labour. Then they'll lie to you, and happily. But a lot of the stuff is a mission. They just don't tell you about stuff. They just don't, which is why if you want to know about something what's really gone, I'm afraid, yeah, you have to go and find out on the internet. Now, of course, the problem there is you're going to get a lot of the same stuff if you go to the usual sites. You're going to get a lot of I don't like the term fake news, because that's what a lot of the mainstream lot use to sort of try and shut people like me up or whatever. They'd probably call me fake news or whatever. But you need to go and find out. And what I'd suggest is go on sites, sort of history sites that seem neutral, and look at your political history. Look at the history of what the Tories have been doing over the past decade. Have a bit of a delve and a look. Don't rely on headlines. Don't, for God's sake, don't base what you're going to do on what you see in the newspapers. I'm not saying don't read newspapers, but please don't base it on what's in newspapers or what you see on the TV, because you're being lied to. I know you know it. Most people know it, but still, it's easy to sort of not have time to find, not have time to sort of dig a bit deeper yourself and find out. I mean, and all this classic crap about Corbyn being an IRA sympathiser and a Hamas sympathiser, and he wants to sort, a sort of Islamist terrorist. I mean, it's all. I mean, listen. I mean, or he's an anti-Semite. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn. Even people who don't like him, even if you don't like Jeremy Corbyn, I mean, for legitimate reasons, forget all the sort of smear crap. You really, if you don't like his policies, fine. You know what I mean? If you don't believe in stuff, I mean, look, I'm not a vegetarian. He's a vegetarian. I'm not a sort of, there's a lot of things I don't find, or I wouldn't agree with Jeremy Corbyn on. But at the end of the day, we both realise that without a Labour Party with the manifesto that we've got at the minute, as soon as possible before Christmas, the poorest are done. They're done. Do you think that your community and the people you know that are not struggling, past the point of struggling, or yourselves, are you going to last another 5 years of Boris Johnson and his Eton buddies? Another 5 years of Boris Johnson selling off and privatising huge parts of the NHS and anything else he can get his hands on to the US and US companies and Donald Trump. Now, again, I'm not a massive anti-Trumper. You know what I mean? I don't go around just slagging off Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is a businessman first. Donald Trump is a rich man first. They're out to make money for their shareholders and themselves. They are not there. Johnson and all that, they're not there with your interests in mind and my interests in mind. They couldn't give a flying you-know-what about us. Why would they? They're business people. They're businessmen. They're the political wing. I mean, Trump's just a pure, but Johnson, they're the political cover for big business. They're business shills, international business shills. That's all they are. I mean, look again. Say, delve into history. The Tory party was specifically set up, specifically created 200 years ago, as an anti-democratic party when people like you and me and women started to be allowed to vote in elections, when democracy started to actually happen rather than just landowners being allowed to vote and people like that. That's what the Tory party is. That's the whole mission for the past. That's what they set up to do. They're set up to stop the majority who are not rich, not property owners, not landowners, from getting what they need and want in government. That's the whole point of the Tory party. And people like Nigel Farage, and they were Tories. They call it the Brexit play, but it's a Tory. They are the same ideology. It's about making money for themselves. And for people like them, you all know this, you can never have enough. There's never enough. There's never sort of get £10 billion, oh, that's enough for me. Never happens. So please, for your sake, not my sake, don't listen to me when I say, oh, vote Labour. Forget that. For your sake, your family's sake, your kids' sakes, the people around you, your community, if you've got a problem with Brexit, put it aside, like I have. Just put it aside for a minute and think firstly, if you can, about getting your doctors back as it should be, getting your hospital back as it should be, or and getting your railway back as it should, so you can get to work on time, or you can get to getting rid of the student debt that your kids might be having to pay off now forever. All of these things, getting proper, hopefully free childcare for parents who have to sort of choose between work or childcare, or work or looking after their kids and going back to education, and all this stuff. Regional investment banks. So you have a regional bank in the poorest areas, like a sort of little Bank of England sort of thing, where they actually distribute money. That's one of Labour's policies. Distribute money in those areas, specifically in those areas, North West, North East, Midlands here, to make sure money that's been ripped out of the places for the past more than 10 years is put back into them. But it's give yourself an early Christmas present, please. The best you can have. The best you can have. If you can put Brexit aside, I know it's not easy to say or do, but I'm doing it, because if I think, oh, Brexit, and don't vote Labour or vote for the Brexit Party or vote for Tories, whatever, because I think they're going to give me Brexit, wonderful. And then for the next 5 years, while the Tories are still in government, or the Tories and the Brexit Party, or the Tories and the Lib Dems, fine, Brexit will have maybe been done. But then everything else we actually need here will be completely destroyed. There was a cancer specialist I saw today actually, saying putting out there on social media that cancer patients will not be able to survive another 5 years of this, and you'll be having another 5 years of this on steroids if the Tories get back in with Johnson. On steroids, mate. So please, don't listen to the media smearing. Think for yourself what you need for yourself and your family. In this country. Forget Brexit, what you need for your health, for your education, your family's education, your family's health, for work, for getting rid of the debt, changing the welfare benefit system so sick people can get what they're entitled to without being ripped away from them all the time for no reason. People who are out of work actually genuinely being helped to get back into work, and into jobs that are actually there, you know what I mean? Rather than pretending there's work and there's not, but punishing you because you can't find it. This is it. Really, this is it. Because we're not going to survive after this if we don't manage to change our government to a Labour one. And believe me, there's lots of Labour MPs, lots and lots of Labour MPs. I absolutely well, let's not get into that. But it's not about personality, it's not about the MPs themselves, it's not about individual personalities, it's about the policies. Look at the manifesto policies, please look at the manifesto. Don't be a slug voting for more salt, okay? Just don't. It's easy to hate, it's easy to read something, oh yeah, I hate Corbyn. But look at the policies. I'm begging you, for your sake and your family's sake, and my sake and my family's sake. I'm begging you. So anyway, ciao for now, friends, comrades, and comment below as you see fit, and see you soon. 5 weeks to go, eh? I don't know when the actual date, the official date is, start date, but round about 5 weeks to go. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Ciao for now.